This week on Crunchweek, we're talking about Facebook's epic acquisition of WhatsApp. Hi, welcome to Crunchweek. I'm Lena Rao.
I'm Colleen Taylor.
And I'm Alex.
So WhatsApp, what's up with WhatsApp? Obviously,
I still feel like I'm shaking from this happening.
Yeah. So Facebook bought WhatsApp for $19 billion. I think it was one of the largest venture-backed acquisitions of a venture-backed company in history.
Right.
Just totally took everyone by surprise. Probably more so because of the number than because of WhatsApp, but $19 billion. I mean,
I feel like I didn't know it was worth that much money, or even on that scale. If you said 1.9, I'd be like, damn, that's expensive. But I think going back and looking at the numbers, the engagement, it makes some sense. But the scale of this, I feel like we just weren't tracking as carefully as we should. So when this dropped, I basically fell out of my chair and was like, Zucker's lost his mind. But then as you dig more into it, as we get into, it actually makes some pretty good sense.
But it's one of these things that just changes the scope of how you think about everything. I mean, remember when we thought that Instagram was insane for $1 billion?
And Snapchat for $3 billion, from Google and Facebook. I mean, that I thought was really surprising. And then, you see WhatsApp and you're just like, what?
So I think this hurts the Snapchat's valuation because Facebook now won't buy it, right? Because they bought their players, so that lowers the bidding capacity.
Yeah,
for
it's
that
really
company.
like Google.
But the final price for Instagram is $715 million, not $1 billion, because Facebook's stock fell apart.
Right.
So I mean, 715. 19 billion. That's like 25x.
Well, and I think it's really important to also kind of think about how this deal was done and kind of some of the sort of backstory around how quickly it was done. And I think there had been ongoing talks for some time, but the founders weren't really interested in selling at that point, and they wanted to remain independent. And then those talks were, I guess, reignited in the past 2 weeks. And by Valentine's Day, I guess the deal was done. I mean, what do you think, Colleen?
Well, this is a proud moment for TechCrunch because we've been beating the WhatsApp app drum for a year and a half, almost. I think it was December, about a year. December 2012 that Alexia and Ingrid London had reported that Facebook wanted to buy WhatsApp and that they were aggressively pursuing it. At that time, both Facebook and WhatsApp really shot down that report. And then I think just Alexia had reported a couple months later that Facebook still wanted WhatsApp, but WhatsApp was rebuffing them, and so Facebook was working on building a competitor. Clearly, that hasn't quite worked out for Facebook. I think what WhatsApp really is, the big thing here, is that it has a lot of younger users, and it has a lot of pull in international places where Facebook hasn't had a ton of traction.
Right. I agree with that entirely. But think about how good it was for WhatsApp to say no in 2012. Yeah. They grew 100% last year. Which is just incredible. So if Facebook bought them in 2012, what would the number have been? 3? 2, 3, 1,
if
0.5?
Even that.
Right. So now, just because they waited, they generated so much more wealth for their shareholders, which we'll get to in just a second, and the company itself. And so, but can you imagine, Zuckerberg comes to you and says, I love you, I want to marry you, please come with me, have a few $1 billion, and you say no? You have to just be, to do that. I'm so impressed.
What about the irony around one of the co-founders, Brian Acton, being denied a job by Facebook a few years back before he, I guess, applied, or before he co-founded WhatsApp.
And at Twitter, too, right?
And at Twitter. And he, tweeted, didn't get a job at Facebook, on to the next job, which I guess would end up being WhatsApp. But, I mean, just so ironic that he was denied a job. And then, of course, he's leading, one of the biggest acquisitions in, the history of
This just turns out, kids, that if you don't get the job, try again. You'll
that's right.
I know. I was just thinking this week, what about the companies that I've sent my resume to or tried to get a job at, and then, what if they bought me? But I think a lot of those companies are now defunct because we're in the media space.
That's right.
So I
had a similar experience.
Right. It's I'll show you current TV, and then it's oh no, they're not even around anymore. But in the technology space, that can happen. I think that's just why we all love being here so much, because it's just an exciting place. It's this team of founders. I think that's a big part of it too. I mean, 19 billion is just insane, or 16 billion plus 3 billion. That's insane, but it's also, these two guys are so different. I think that they even said themselves in a Wired article that came out this week that they're just like the anti-Silicon Valley story. I mean, they started WhatsApp when they were in their 30s. Right now they're in their early 40s. They're not this 22-year-old Stanford graduate who worked in business development at Google, which is what Kevin
one of their
Systrom was.
co-founders like worked his way up through college. Like he did sort of odd jobs.
Yeah, barely made it through high school or something.
It was just
food stamps.
Kind of amazing. Which of course another really kind of awesome picture I guess that was passed around and shared was how he signed the acquisition documents on the steps of the welfare office where he used to collect food stamps for his mother and him, which is just kind of like mind-blowing. It is so different from the traditional Silicon Valley acquisition story, I'd say.
So long live people being different. I mean, I think I agree with all of this. I sat near the Snapchat CEO at the Crunchies, and I was just like, ugh, I don't know, like, he's like the generic startup guy, right? I mean, he's very, very smart, company's doing very well, but like, he was just another white dude wearing a suit.
Right, raised wealthy, raised privileged,
I don't really know
wealthy.
Jack
Well, he was raised, which a lot of people who even become coders or have the wherewithal to become really great coders by the time they're in their early 20s. They've been exposed to computers and had an extra computer around their house for them to hack on, which probably means they had a bit of disposable income. They weren't necessarily on food stamps. So I think that is the prototypical founder that has seen success in the past 10 years of Silicon Valley. Went to Stanford, that kind of thing. But I think that now it's fun to start seeing much more diversity in the world of founders and the world of super successful founders.
Talk about like a big win for Sequoia. I mean, not that we all know Sequoia has done incredibly well over the past 20, 30 years, but I mean, they were the only investors in WhatsApp. At first, like everyone sort of thought it was only like maybe 8 or 10 million, but it ends up that it was
60,
they had put more money into it, so 60 million.
That's what I think is correct.
Yeah, and they apparently made, I think the report was 3 billion off of the deal, which is
that's what 50x.
Awesome. Yeah, really, really great.
So, do you guys think, that this was some great strategy and foresight by Sequoia and by these founders and by the people who went to go work at WhatsApp, or how much luck was just involved here?
Can I take that?
Yeah.
So I think they saw a good founding team, a good product, good engagement, good momentum, and good growth, and they thought, this is a good bet. I don't think they thought the scale of it was going to happen. I mean, right? I think they would have been happy with a $1.9 billion exit, let alone a 19. But I think they made the proper, wager. I just think they came back at a much higher multiple than they expected. Does that sound reasonable?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think it's clear that messaging. You've seen all these different messaging apps that were founded around the same time. So I think that they were onto something there that wasn't necessarily just like dumb luck that they stumbled onto something powerful. Like they probably knew that messaging, there was this real sort of opportunity to take messaging and make it a standalone business. But I mean, in terms of being able to get to the kind of scale that they were able to, that's dumb. I think that's dumb luck. I mean, there's only been a handful of companies that we know that have been able to do that, especially international.
And that's the one thing that Zuckerberg said many times justifying this acquisition, that WhatsApp is on a clear trajectory to get 1 billion users. Right. And any time that you've made something that 1 billion people are using, that's
and so quickly. I mean, it's kind of amazing. I think about how long Facebook took to get 1 billion.
Right, and they put that graph in the slide deck showing how much more quickly WhatsApp was growing. Yeah. I mean, but Facebook did have some constraints on its early growth based on colleges.
That's true.
But that was self-imposed. Yeah. But I think they have 70% of Facebook's MAUs. I think it's like 350 million compared to 556 or whatever that is. It's insane. No, 58%, sorry. So this company is bigger than Twitter in some ways. And I don't think we just knew that.
Can they really now, going forward, under Facebook, continue to have that difference? I think a lot of people are on WhatsApp as almost the anti-Facebook, and it's something where, WhatsApp really is against displaying ads against their messages. They're against even keeping any of the messages on their servers. The messages only stay on your phones. WhatsApp is supposedly pretty privacy focused, and Facebook is kind of the opposite of that. I mean, how can this really make sense?
It's a really interesting point. I'm also wondering the same thing. I mean, you think about Instagram, even though that's its own separate property now, they started putting ads on Instagram, and it has changed a little bit on the business side.
Right.
But from everything the founder has said, he wanted an independent company, and that seems to be the agreement that they've had.
And WhatsApp monetizes in a way that Instagram didn't. Instagram had zero revenue. WhatsApp has, probably 100 million people paying $1 a year for it now, but maybe even more. So they have, very high revenue. So I don't think, need to prove that in any other way. As long as they hit their growth numbers, Facebook won't have to impair the goodwill, and we'll be okay.
But how does Facebook get anything from the growth if they don't even know who the WhatsApp users are? Are they going to start requiring that WhatsApp users sign in with a Facebook account? I mean, how can they even control that?
They'd probably add that option. I don't think they would want to force it, because I don't think there's 100% overlap between WhatsApp users and Facebook users. Nor do they want that to be the case, because they want to grab new people that they couldn't reach in international and, in
Well, and this goes to maybe what Zuck's new strategy is, which is like basically to create the studio model. Like Facebook is one vertical, Paper's one vertical, Instagram's one vertical, and then now there's WhatsApp. Now, like what you said, it will be interesting to see, because WhatsApp is so different from all these other verticals, and there isn't a lot of compatibility there, how they're able to create synergies and leverage each other. It's unclear yet.
It reminds me about when I was talking to the Mailbox team after they joined Dropbox, and I was like, so what the hell, guys? Why are you here? And they're like, well, we just think we're a good fit, and we're going to let that team do their thing, and we're not going to worry about integration points because we just believe in what they're doing. And that's it. That was enough for them. They just had enough cash, capital, stock to make a bet like that. And Facebook had more than enough to do this. It was very expensive, but they could definitely afford it. So I don't think they need to force integration in the short term to derive long-term value. But if it doesn't hit its growth numbers, ouch. Right. But that's the real question, right? How fast will user growth continue? Will it be still 1 million per day in a year, and so forth?
Well, definitely a lot of ifs, but really exciting for that team, and of course, very surprising for all of us who were taken aback. There was no scoops on that one.
We need to do our jobs a little better next time.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, and tune in next week.